Hello everybody, welcome back to some more Kerbal Space Program. Today we're taking a look at space planes. Here you can see my space plane, the Kestrel, which was featured in my The Journey Continues series, which happened quite a while ago now. I mean, I would produce a sequel to that, but I don't have the time at the moment. This is a single stage to orbit craft, and it performs quite nicely. It does need a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of upgrading before it can actually haul any significant payload into orbit, but that's by the by. Now, one of the things that's always interested me about space planes is the idea of, not really a two-stage space plane, sort of a two-craft solution where you have some sort of lifting craft which takes the space plane up to a high altitude and hopefully a high speed, and then the spacecraft itself continues on, hopefully into orbit. I suppose it'd be a bit like, in real life, sort of like Virgin Galactic with its White Knight lifter, but obviously on a larger scale, because we do actually want to get into orbit this time. And also, I do like the idea of a spacecraft that detaches from the top of the lifter. This kind of thing has been tried in real life. It hasn't ended so well, but then this is Kerbal Space Program. We're not really constrained by real life so much, and I can do pretty much what I want. And what I want to do is make a two-craft spaceplane lifter. So, yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to take a sort of evolutionary approach for this one and just start with something really basic that I've just slapped together and just refine it as time goes by. So to begin with, we've just got, basically a trimmed down version of my Kestrel spaceplane strapped atop the normal version of my Kestrel spaceplane. As I said, very basic. It can almost certainly be refined upon, but we're just going to test this out, see what happens. So, engines on, brakes off. Yeah, let's see how this works. I've done a couple of test takeoffs just to make sure this will actually lift off, and it does. It requires quite a bit of speed, though. Because these elevons aren't going to be much use here, and otherwise we're kind of relying on the turning capability of the Kestrel, but with the extra weight, which isn't going to go too well. Yeah, so about 125 meters per second, and we lift off, and we're just going to go into our usual ascent pattern, so lifting up to about 20 degrees here, and remembering, of course, to put the landing gear in. Now, you know, we're going to get up to height, we're going to detach these, and hopefully it's going to be a clean separation. I have a feeling thrust to weight ratios are going to come into it at some point. We'll have to see what happens. Oh god, I hope this doesn't go disastrously. Okay, we just passed 11 kilometers in altitude, and this is the point where normally we just pitch down to start picking up some speed, trying to get the ramjet effect from those Rapier engines. So I need to be going about 400 meters per second for that to kick in. Do have to lose a bit of altitude at this stage, but hopefully nothing too much. And yeah, the shading effect of those pre-coolers still hasn't been fixed. I have brought up the little window for the bicoupler here. That's going to let me keep an eye on the fuel level in this lifting stage. I'm going to need to go a little further down than that, aren't I? If you want to get up to 400, down to 10 degrees below the horizon. Okay, just let it get a few meters per second above 400 and just start to level it out. Oh, that's causing a few difficulties. Okay, and we're starting to climb again, and our speed is starting to improve again. Might have to hold it here for a little while longer. Coming up 20,000 meters, we're about to start losing power from those Rapier engines, and then we will have to kick in with the closed mode, with the rocket mode. There we go, starting to lose it. Let's see if we can get the apoapsis height up above 30,000 before we switch. Just trying to let the liquid fuel do as much of the work as possible before we start getting the oxidizer involved. I'll have to do about there. Pitch it up to about 30 degrees. We're having trouble holding that. Oh, this is I don't think this craft is as stable as it could be. No! Do not do this to me! Do not do this to me! Oh no. Oh no. Okay, back to the drawing board. Okay, so we've taken some steps to evolving this thing, mainly revolving around starting to specialise the lifter. Gone is everything it would use whilst it was actually in orbit. You know, solar panels, radiators, the nuclear engines. I've got rid of the little side pods that held them, and also I've put a lot more fuel in it, and it's all towards the front, so hopefully that should make the craft a bit more stable. And despite the fact it carries a lot more fuel, it's actually about 7 tons lighter, the whole thing, so hopefully it should be a little better. A little bit of handling, a little better getting to orbit, a little bit more stable, but then again, there's only one way to find out, isn't there? So let's get this one going, see how we do this time around. I'm hoping we don't need to get up quite as much speed to start to take off. I have moved the move this rear landing gear forward. It's now taking a lot of weight, but it should be okay. Just to give these those rear control surfaces a bit more leverage. But no, we still need to be going about 125 before we take off. Okay, so this is where it all went wrong last time. We're just losing the power from the engines. I can't quite keep the nose up. Again, it's... Oh, that is really not wanting to keep the nose up. Let's just see what happens once we get to... Yep, 30,000 apoapsis. Let's kick in with the rocket mode. Slowly pick the nose up. I think we are getting a little bit of that instability. We can cope with it though. Okay. This is looking good. It's getting really hard to control now. Not quite as stable as I was hoping. 50,000, let's start to lower the nose, get it down to about 20,000. Hopefully that will make the whole thing easier to handle. I think there's now, it's probably an imbalance in the whole fuel situation. One of these craft is now, this is now much lighter than the orbiter, which is a problem I don't think we can really get around. So we're just going to have to detach here and hope I've got the fuel aboard the this craft to actually make it into orbit. That craft isn't manned; it's just going to fall back to Kerbin. So what were we doing? Just using up the last of our oxidizer now. Just because we might as well. We're not going to use it from here on out. And once that's done, which it should be any second. Okay, it's looking good. So we can shut down those engines. Bring up our nuclear engines. Okay, beautiful. We're in orbit, well over 2,000, approaching 2,400 meters per second of delta V. So let's see if we can take this thing up, but get a bit more lifting capacity out of it. Let's see if we can get something in the payload and see if that'll actually work. I'd hoped I'd be able to start specialising this lifter a bit more, sort of take the results of that last launch, that last trip into orbit, and work out what kind of fuel oxidizer mix to just liquid fuel balance I need, and something similar with the actual the orbiter itself. But where it didn't go so well, we're going to have to just try and press on. Hope we fixed the last problem. What I've done is I've linked these inside two engines to a different hotkey, so I can turn them off. Getting a little bit of the plane rotation bug there, but hopefully I can just turn them off when it wants to pitch down a bit too much. So it wants to start pitching up too much. And that should solve that one. Anyway, yeah, let's get this one going. So throttle up, brakes off. Yeah, let's go. What we are going to be able to test on this trip up is the payload I mentioned last time. I did check to see what was kind of the heaviest payload I'd taken up in one of my Mark II vehicles. It was about 3.5 tons, so in this little payload bay I've put about 4.5 tons worth of fuel, which I've forbidden the craft to use, so hopefully that should be a good simulator. If you're wondering what was happening last time when the whole thing just sort of suddenly wanted to start sort of pitching uncontrollably, basically, as this craft was losing its fuel, because it's pumping fuel up to the actual orbiter to keep those fuel tanks topped up. So the thrust to weight ratio of this was staying the same. The thrust to weight ratio of this lower craft was sort of rapidly increasing as the fuel tanks got closer to empty, and so you get this almost uncontrollable pitch. But hopefully we've solved that mostly. We'll have to see. Just going to keep an eye on it this time. The craft just wanting to pitch up more and more. I might cut the engines. I might try cutting the engines, see if that helps a bit. But yes, it is pulling up quite. Let's cut the engines. Pull back up to... want to start flattening out a bit actually. Now their apoapsis is up to about 50,000. Now whilst the engines are offline I'm going to go and turn them down. Just flatten that out some more. Right. I think we're going to get all the way up to our design. No, not quite. We are going to get into space with the lifter, but not quite all the way there. Okay, lifter engine shut down. It's out of oxidizer, so let's just detach our little orbiter. Get clear of our lifter. It's a shame you can't really have. Let's thrust quite heavily there because we want to get that, want to start pushing that apoapsis away from us. It's a little close for comfort at the moment. It's a shame you can't, you have to... And I suppose actually we could get into orbit quite quickly and then switch back to the lifter and try and take it back to the... KSC, but KSP's not really set up for that. And that will do us. We'll shut down those engines, and if we bring up the nuclear engines, we should have we've still got a fair amount of oxidizer. So that should, yeah, it's not really displaying sort of our true delta V, which is annoying. But I'd imagine, how much of our oxidizer did we get through? Most of it, so it's probably going to be going to need to keep that around, but we can sort of burn the rest of that off reasonably easily, and then use the rest from node ring. Oh, we do have a much heavier payload, so that might be affecting delta V, but I can't imagine it's gone down from like 2,500 to 263. Anyway, are there any more improvements we can make to this thing? Okay, I think this will have to be the final iteration for today. That last flight, by the way, I did check it out. We did still have about 2,100 meters per second of delta V in the orbiter by the time we actually did get into orbit, sort of with the nuclear engines. So that's pretty good with that payload. Let's see if we can improve upon this. I've gone and I've adjusted exactly the fuel loadout of both of these craft. The lifter now has more of the rocket fuel mix. The orbiter now has a little bit more of the liquid fuel. So let's see how this one does. So on with the engines, throttle them up, stability assist and everything on. Let's get going. So it kind of... This is pretty much what I had envisaged as a system. When I was sort of saying about, you know, a lifter and a space plane, sort of something that gets us almost into orbit, and then the orbital craft sort of carries on up there and circularizes and what have you. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a lifter. Sorry, just trying to get it pointing straight there. It doesn't seem much like a space plane and lifter. I think this is like an almost space plane with a complete space plane stuck on the, well, with a smaller orbiter stuck on top. I don't know what I was aiming for. This, as I said at the start, this concept had always interested me, and this is pretty much exactly the roles I had envisaged. But I don't know, something about it. I don't know if I will use this in any if I do a follow-on to The Journey Continues. Because, I mean, I do have an SSTO, and imperfect though it is, it's an SSTO. And there's just something about that. This, though, might be quite good as a lifting craft for, like, smaller vehicles. Because if we can get this into orbit, I can probably get, like, a much, like, smaller orbiter into orbit, something that I don't know, we'll have to see. Also might be good for air launched rockets. I can stick something on the top of there. Struggling to keep this, come on. You know you want to get up to about 20 degrees. Losing a bit of speed there, but it should be okay. Okay, that'll do. You know, air launched rockets, there's been a lot of that about. A lot of speculation as to whether or not that could actually be economically viable. I think Elon Musk was saying, you know, they looked into it and it might have saved them like 2% of the fuel or something, or 2% of the cost. I can't quite remember. So, you know, not quite that. And of course, you've got various companies that are trying it. Virgin Orbital. There's a whole list of companies that have gone under that have tried to do this, and it's not really quite worked. But yeah, I don't know, so maybe we might use this lifter section for something like that in a sort of any future series. We'll have to see. How are we doing? Getting up to about 8.5 kilometers. So we'll do the usual routine. Get up to about 11 kilometers, pitch down, get our speed up, and then proceed from there. Okay, so I was having a few problems with this, and I was wondering why, and it turns out, yeah, we've exhausted all of the fuel in our lifter stage, so we are going to have to just fire this up and let our little orbital space plane carry on its merry little way. And we're going to want to fire that up all the way, and we're going to need to push our apoapsis out in front of us a bit. So not the most fuel efficient route to orbit, but I think we'll get there nonetheless. Okay, so that's uncircularized. It's looking good. Just about 2,400 meters per second with a 4.5 ton payload. Massive improvement over my old spaceplane, but as I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to use this one. Next challenge, of course, is to get it back down to Kerbal, but I think we'll just do some post commentary to close it out as we do that. So yeah, I messed up the re-entry burn for this. We overshot the KSE by quite a long distance. Also, the craft was quite front heavy with that payload, and the fuel transferring seemed to bug out at one point as I was just trying to sort of rebalance it, which all didn't help. But we eventually did get ourselves back to the KFC and get ourselves landed. So it's all good. So yeah, a slightly random KSP video for today, but you know what? I wanted to build this thing, and I went and built it. So there we go. If you've got any ideas of things you'd like me to build, either in vanilla KSP or BD Armory, then please let me know in the comments. But yeah, that'll be all for today. Stream later today if you're watching this as it comes out. Another mailbag stream. But yeah, if you have liked today's video, please consider liking, subscribing, following me on Twitter, getting involved with the Discord. Maybe even, if you fancy it and you want to help support the channel, popping over to either PayPal or Discord and giving me a little bit of a hand that way. Links all in the description. I will be back soon with some more Kerbal Space Program, but for now, thanks for watching. Take care. and I'll see you next time.